It is Sunday, and we had fights yesterday. So, Mio on MMA, the review of UFC Paris, the first show in Paris, France for the UFC, a country that has a bizarre relationship with MMA, to say the least, because it's been kind of producing fighters for quite some time, and there's an appetite for it, but it went through the period of unsanctioned but legal to banned to now sanctioned and legal. I don't know. It's been a weird process compared to most other countries, because a lot of other countries just kind of said fuck it in a nutshell, just chill, just relax on the whole thing. But France has had a couple of different twists and turns on the whole thing. Pretty good card. The French fighters went undefeated. The people who were supposed to win won, and in relatively impressive fashion. Pretty much all the fights were reasonably fun. I found personally the Nathaniel Wood Charles Jourdain fight a little bit disappointing, but only because the bar was so high on that one. Because Charles Jourdain is a madman, fight of the night candidate pretty much every time he's out there. And this was a little bit below that standard. Had this been anyone else, I think I probably would have no feeling of disappointment on the fight. Might be having something to do with the fact that Jourdain took a fight. How long ago was the Burgos fight again? He fought on July 16th, so less than 2 months ago. So, probably just got booked too soon, honestly. And credit to Nathaniel Wood. I think Nathaniel Wood found gaps that he could utilize and whatever. And we'll talk about that fight in more detail. But even that wasn't a bad fight. And then William Gomes versus Yarno Aarons was a little It was a little bit of exposing both of them for their weaknesses, and the fact that I said this in my breakdown. I'm not entirely sold that they're ready for the UFC. There's a UFC fighter in there. I think there is the upside, but not quite there. But then everything else was pretty much fire after that. Kopolov versus Chirico. Imam Buckley was good. Vittori Whitaker was good. And of course, the main event, Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa. Very, very good fight. Everything you would want from a heavyweight performance for the two of them. Hawk Paras McDessie was fine. Not amazing, but fine. Ziam versus Figlak was actually probably the most eye-opening fight of the night. Saint Denis had a quick stoppage. Well, not a quick stoppage. Got to the second round, but a violent fight where he hurt his opponent multiple times. Christian Quinones got a win, and Stephanie Egger got a win as well. So, with stoppages and fairly entertaining fights. And and also I have to say this: the John Gooden, Paul Felder, Michael Bisping combination on commentary, one of my favorites. So let's talk about just kind of the oddities going on with the MMA fandom right now. There's this weird conversation going on about Conor McGregor, and essentially Conor has not been tested by USADA for 12 months. That's the claim, and I haven't seen an actual rebuttal of that factually stated. And the argument being given by certain Conor McGregor, I don't even know if fans, because they don't even really necessarily come off as fans. They come off as people claiming non-story, essentially. Is that he's retired. How is he retired? Has he had another tweet that I missed where he announced that he was retired like he did in 2019, 2020, and then took fights again? Conor McGregor is not retired until he stops talking about being an active fighter, about getting a title shot, about... Well, that's really it, actually. As long as he's talking about a title shot and his fight and the money and the fight purses and who he wants to fight and so on, he's not retired. Doesn't matter what he says on Twitter, because he's retired at least 2 documented times before and was right back in there. I say this not as a negative, well, somewhat as a negative, but not as a not as a hate remark, but I don't think Conor McGregor actually can retire. I don't think he I don't think his personality would allow him to. I think like there are days when he considers it and honestly thinks he's retiring, and then he misses it. I think he's an adrenaline junkie. I think what he does outside of the cage, if anything, actually reasserts this, how he lives his life. I don't think he's ever retiring. So yeah, the whole thing, and this is the thing. I have never really thought that PED testing is honestly all that required. I'm serious on this. I think that the amount of steroid use that happens in MMA probably still happens even with USADA in play. And we've seen this with like John Jones is a great example. This test positive. No. He gave help to help people, help USADA bust people who are doing what he's doing. Except it's not like there was a tremendous rise in positive tests. There's not like he seemingly ratted on anybody. It just, big star gets different treatment. Brock Lesnar was a great example. We knew he was pissing hot. He went in there and the fans as a whole didn't really care. And when Mark Hunt sued about it, he found a very unsympathetic fan base. So I don't know. Like I don't care. I don't pass judgment that Conor McGregor probably is on steroids, is bulking up. But if we're going to pretend that steroids are illegal in the sport, then he needs to be tested. And people are using the excuse of his injuries, his recovery from injuries as a reason not to test him. Well, no, if you know what he's taking, then you know what he'll test positive for. And you'll know approximately what the levels will be for that. You can still test them. So yeah, that was weird. And also, like, John Hathaway is still being tested. Why? Man has not fought in can't remember if it's 6 or 8 years, but it's either 2014 or 2016 was his last fight. Still getting tested by USADA. Kind of insane. Because if anyone's retired, it's John Hathaway. It's not Conor McGregor. So that's our, you know what? That's good Conor drama, I guess. At least it doesn't have legal issues attached to it. At least there is that. Okay, let's get into this fight card. I'll say it right now at the start here. The judging didn't have a wrong winner. There wasn't a fighter that won decision of contentious nature here. But I am going to be referencing to just some weird, controversial scorecards throughout this because there were some weird takes on certain rounds and so on. But let's get into it. We'll start at the top with Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa. This fight ended in the third round by TKO, 4 minutes 23 seconds. About what I thought. I thought third or fourth round stoppage. This was a pretty good card for me. I went 8-4. Although I will say that the 4 fights I had wrong, I had very wrong. I will say that. I will say that picking my Figlak, bad mistake. Picking Khalid Taha, I don't regret that one actually. That's a fight that just went against it, and Kiona's looked good. But the Figlak pick wound up being a terrible pick, and so did the Charles Jourdain fight. Those two really went against me. I also lost on Alessio Di Chirico, but I don't feel too bad about that one. I really just feel bad about the Figlak fight, and I'm going to have to mentally figure out how I can feel comfortable picking Fares Ziam, despite the fact that he looks so goddamn uncomfortable in there. But this one I got pretty bang on. Cyril Gane was basically picking Tuivasa apart. And this is not to say that Tuivasa didn't hurt him at some points. He dropped him in the second round. So, obviously, he did hurt him. He hurt him a couple times other than that. He hits hard. The puncher's chance was in play. But the problem was that at no point in the fight, outside of the second round knockdown, did Tuivasa look like he was in control to handle the fight. I put it on Twitter that essentially I was probably going to be scoring every round for Gane because I couldn't imagine Tuivasa winning rounds. And you could argue he won the second round. I actually still don't think he did. It'd be interesting here. What does UFC Stats have to say about that second round? Again, not that UFC Stats is a arbitrator of everything. They're often kind of weird and wrong. But like, yeah, even in the second round, Gane outlanded him 41 significant strikes to 15. And if your thought is that a knockdown wins you the round, I don't have a problem with it. I would just like to see it I would like to see it like applied consistently, because it often doesn't. It often really does not get applied consistently. This idea that a knockdown wins the round, because we've seen knockdowns, and also, and I think it is a bit of a fallacy, because if you get outlanded, let us say 50-1 in a round, but that one punch knocked him down, did you win the round? It's a bit of a weird thing. It's not like boxing in this regard, where like you have enough rounds where that can kind of come into play. The fight's too short. But yeah, Gane, even in that round, was actually up the pressure after getting hurt. He responds to danger. Interestingly enough, I think Gane, the way to make Gane boring, and the way that has made Gane boring, is to not be threatening. When you're threatening and you're throwing at him, he becomes exciting. Like he'll start working hard counters. He particularly loved going to the body here. A lot of kicks to the body for Tai Tuivasa. Definitely softened up the internal organs a fair bit. And there's not much else to say. I don't think we learned much off of this fight. I think Gane is a fantastic striker, and if you come after him with a strictly striking game, you will probably lose. And I don't really know if there's anyone that in the UFC right now that could just strike with him. And Tai Tuivasa wasn't going to offer a grappling threat. He didn't. And he just slowly but surely got picked apart and finished in the third round. Great show of heart from him. Like, I don't want to take away from Tai Tuivasa. That breakdown there sounds dismissive of the man, but he showed fantastic heart when he was clearly hurt and kept coming back for more. And kept trying new things. Kept trying new ways to land and apply his power. And like I said, did drop him. So, a fight that does nothing to hurt Tuivasa's stock as a high-end action fighter, it doesn't do anything to hurt Tuivasa's stock as an entertaining fighter and as a guy that you want to see fight. It does just point towards a ceiling that I think most hardcore fans believed existed, and it's not news to them. So there you go. I'm going to, obviously, I don't really know what to do with these guys after this. It's kind of a weird spot because, like, with Gane, he won the fight. He won this fight. And I think if everything had gone according to plan, he would be fighting in a number one contenders match against the winner of Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic, for a shot at Francis Ngannou. Or he would be waiting for the winner of Francis Ngannou versus the winner of that fight. The problem is that I have no idea when Stipe Jon Jones is going to happen. If it's going to happen, if the UFC is actually going to make their plan a reality, and I personally kind of think that we probably have seen the last of Francis Ngannou in the UFC. So, does Gane end up with a title shot off this? Or an interim title? And if so, who is it against? I don't know. The guy is probably the fourth best heavyweight that they have on roster, depending on how Jon Jones is at heavyweight and how the years have been kind or unkind to Stipe. And the big question is really, how is he going to do on takedowns? Like, if you want to test him, you put him against Curtis Blades, I guess. But does the UFC really want to be in the business of promoting Curtis Blades? Like, it's weird. For Tai Tuivasa, I kind of had the idea, this feels a little dull. This feels a little bit too low down. Feels like it should be shinier for Tai Tuivasa off this fight. But what about a fight with Sergey Pavlovich? Sergey is a guy who is probably going to stand with them. He has a wrestling game. He has a takedown game. He has a grappling game. But he likes to stand and bang. He's an up-and-comer in the division. He's a very interesting talent that I think even the win over Derek Lewis has not necessarily sold everybody on. And you could do that fight, and it would be an interesting, fun fight. But at the same time, I also feel like Tai deserves better. Something that probably comes with a little bit more prestige, even though it's probably a worse fight in practicality than having him fight Pavlovich. Robert Whitaker and Marvin Vettori fought at 185. The two guys who have got a collective 0-4 against Israel Adesanya, but are weirdly still probably two of the biggest challenges to Adesanya. The first round was a little bit dull, a little bit unactive. It was kind of Robert Whitaker trying to find his range, trying to find that comfort level, trying to find what was going to work against Marvin Vettori. Vettori coming out with a good game plan, and this has been the highlight. This has been not the highlight, the modus operandi for Marvin Vettori. He comes out with a good game plan, something worked out nicely with Coach Cordero and the guys at King's MMA, and it's very effective, but it's all he can really do. Because as the fight goes on, his boxing becomes more simple as the stuff stops working, and his aggression becomes less effective as things stop working. So as a result, the first round of this fight was the best one. I'm assuming it's the round that Vettori got on the cards. I think Whitaker won it. He landed more strikes. I think he landed the slightly cleaner strikes on a regular basis. But it was a little bit of a low output round, and it was definitely Vettori's best round. I don't think it's ridiculous. I think there are people that think it's ridiculous to score the first round for Vettori. I don't necessarily think so. I think it's a bad card, but I think it's an understandable card. Particularly, the crowd was very much rooting for Vettori. There was either there was a significant French portion of the crowd that was willing to cheer for an Italian, or there was a significant Italian presence at the venue. I don't know which, but the reactions to his shots were large. Now, I am going to say this. I thought commentary was really bad in particularly the first round of this fight, but like even throughout. They were dick riding Vettori in a big way. Big way. There was a moment where Vettori threw a high kick. And he throws high kicks. It was an awkward looking high kick, and it's always kind of awkward looking when he throws a high kick. It seems like he should be really, really easy to knock down or dump when he throws a high kick, but it hasn't happened, so maybe it's not. Throws a high kick. It gets largely blocked by Whitaker, and Whitaker hits a counter that stumbles him backwards, and the commentary's like, wow, that high kick from Marvin Vettori. And like I said, I liked this commentary combination. This fight was like the one exception where they seem to be dick riding one fighter. There may have been another example. I might come back, but this one was probably the worst one. And from that point onwards, Whitaker started to largely just have his way with him. He'd figured out what was going to work and what defensively to limit Vettori on. Like, for example, Vettori landed... I had to sneeze. Vettori landed 33% or landed 34% of his strikes in the first round, 14 of 41 significant strikes. Was outlanded by 6 strikes total in that round. And then after that, he was outlanded by 14 and then outlanded by 16, and his percentage dropped to 22 and 30. So, like, this is one of those few times where I think you can look at the box score, you can look at the strike counter, and actually just really go, wow, this fight had a definitive narrative and a definitive pathway that it went, and it was Whitaker getting comfortable, getting his range, getting his counter opportunities, mixing in the side kicks to the calf, the low kicks to the calf, slowing Vettori down, and Vettori just running out of ideas. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody on Twitter about whether Vettori should change camps or not. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. Like, I don't think that, like, leaving King's MMA would be the worst idea in the world for Vettori. I don't honestly think he's learning a ton more. But the one thing I would say to Vettori fans who think that changing camps is going to have a big payoff for Marvin is that I think it's important to note that Marvin Vettori's problems are not problems that are traditionally associated with King's MMA. King's is usually considered to be a pretty good striking gym that develops new ideas and new concepts at a pretty high rate, like a pretty solid rate. And the fact that he, generally speaking, does not adapt in fights, he can definitely adapt. Like, he can adapt to a game plan. He can adapt to a game plan. But he doesn't really adapt during fights. I think is really just more on, like, this is Marvin Vettori. That, like, on a fight IQ, on an adjustment thinking standpoint, he's just not very good. And makes up for that with his insane durability and rage. He lost the unanimous decision here. I believe 2 judges gave the entire fight to Whitaker and 1 did not. Let me pull up the... Yeah, I'm correct on that. Clemens Werner gave, I assume, the first round. Let's verify it. To Marvin Vettori. Yes, he did. A bad decision, or a wrong score, but one that I can live with. I can forgive. That maybe just the noise of the arena and the fact that it wasn't that much of a blowout round was enough to make that make sense. There will be a decision later that I have a way bigger problem with. What's next? It's kind of weird for Whitaker because, like, who does Whitaker lose to at 185? That's not Israel Adesanya. But at the same time, is there any appetite for a third fight between Izzy and Robert Whitaker? It's a legitimate question, and I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know the answer for what to do with Whitaker. And for Marvin Vettori, I would love to see him fight Sean Strickland because I think having those two go head to head would be really, really fun because Strickland is a guy who is similar to Vettori in the sense that I don't think he really adapts during fights. And I would assume that Vettori's coaches would come up with an excellent game plan to deal with him. And they're apparently buddies. But at the same time, they're both like they're both trying to give off this psycho gimmick vibe. And to be honest, I actually think Vettori probably is slightly mentally unhinged. Whereas I think with Strickland, it's entirely an act. It's an excuse to be as politically incorrect as he wants to be. It's an excuse to say whatever he wants and get away with it. And people just like, oh, he's just crazy. Because I've said this repetitively. He doesn't fight like a crazy person. Honestly doesn't. He just wants to use it as a pass card to being a jackass. And I think Vettori would just walk through his jabs and put him down. So, like, I really want to see that. I also did like that Vettori after the fight spoke to the crowd in Italian and asked them to own the loss, unlike the Israel Adesanya loss, where he still to this day I think denies it, and was really classy with Robert Whitaker. Told the fans to give him some love. I like that. I like that. So Marvin Vettori kind of won me over a little bit. Still not a guy that I really would want to be friends with or anything. Still seems like a bit of a head case, but I think he's also trying to do right. So hey, low bar to clear, but sort of good guy Marvin for the next little bit. Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. This did end up on the main card after the UFC for ages having it on the prelim card on their website, on the ESPN app. I know the cards are always subject to change, obviously, because injuries can move things around, fights can be canceled. You're never going to have your way on that, but I have no idea why this fight was located where it was for the longest time. This is where it should have been. This was the other ranked fighter on the card, Imavov. This was the exciting highlight reel guy who you're probably going to be using that ninja kick for the next 50 years to highlight, to hype up fans in Joaquin Buckley. This is where this fight should have been. And this is a fight card that I think had a weird decision on it because I believe two judges Ben Cartlidge and Mark Collette gave, or no, it's just Derek Cleary. Pardon me. And I was gonna say I like Cartlidge. Derek Cleary somehow gave the third round to Nasruddin Imavov, and in a word, no. In a word, no. Imavov was outlanded in the third round quite heavily. He was hurt at least a little bit a couple of times and did nothing to Buckley. Apparently the strikes were only separated by 8 strikes, but it felt like more at the time. Felt like way more. And it felt like the quality was all Buckley's. Like, Buckley, after kind of just getting worked for the first 2 rounds, honestly, getting kind of shut out of the fight for the first 2 rounds, came in and was like, you know what? We're going to do this. We're just going to do this. We're just going to go forward. We're going to throw. We're going to throw with power. We're going to throw with mean intentions. And it worked. And admittedly, I think that does show a limitation of Imavov that I think I have pointed out before, that I think a lot of what he does is still just kind of reach insulation as opposed to active, effective defense. But at the same time, it took a heck of a hype-up speech from Buckley's corner, Leon Edwards' corner style, but with technical insight to get him to do it. And also, Buckley is a bit crazy. So, I don't think it's really that big of a problem. But like the first 2 rounds really did show the difference in technical levels between Nasruddin Imavov and Buckley. He was finding all kinds of counter opportunities, sticking him on the outside of his reach. And of course, this is the problem for Buckley. He's a 5'10" middleweight. He has a reasonably solid reach for a 5'10" middleweight, but he is still a 5'10" middleweight. And it does feel like he should be at welterweight. And the reason he's not at welterweight, it honestly feels like dude likes to be stacked, likes to be jacked up, and muscular as all heck. I don't want to say he's got a bad diet, because I don't think so. I don't think you can find an ounce of fat on that man. But he's got a lot of he's got a lot of physical bulk that doesn't really fit. Like, it'd be one thing if he was like this stud wrestler. If he was like I guess middleweight actually really lacks like super studly wrestlers now that I think about it. But like if he was like Kevin Randleman. Like Kevin Randleman is a guy who fought at heavyweight and 205, but had like probably welterweight height. But like his style was slamming people, getting in on the hips, heavy explosivism, going forward with a wrestling game. And it nullified the reach advantages quite often. Buckley does not have that game. Buckley has like Buckley at his best is actually kind of like an outside striker. And being short for a weight class and being an outside striker always is going to be a bit of a problem. So I was talking also with people on Twitter about like, should he go down to 170? I'd love to hear from you. Should he go down to 170? Because I think it would suit his frame better. I think he would be terrifying. There are people who think he can't make that weight cut. And to be clear, I think he would have to lose some of his muscle mass to make that weight cut. I think when I'm talking about a healthy 170 cut for him, it does involve a level of physical changes, physical renewal, so to speak. But for example, looking at a guy who's fighting on a very bad pay-per-view that's coming up, Daniel Rodriguez is a guy who's 6'1", pretty jacked, pretty wide in the shoulders, pretty wide in the body, like a similar broad bone structure to Buckley, 3 inches taller, 35 years old, so not a young stud or anything, but fights at 170. I have to say it, like, would it not be possible for Buckley to make it there with a change in emphasis on physical look, basically, on the aesthetics of his body? And if he keeps fighting at 185, don't get me wrong, still going to win fights. Still a physical force. Still creative. Still very hard nosed, and hard willed. Like I said, he lost those first 2 rounds, and he just said, "Okay, we're going after it in the third," and it worked. So, and also I think it was helped by the fact that Imavov faded, and I have to wonder how much the bad blood between these two, because they were jawing at each other at the weigh-ins, before the fight, between the rounds, to the point where Mark Goddard told him to stop the referee. Yeah, I wonder, getting that emotionally involved, did that have a role in the fading of Imavov, or is he a guy who might do that a little bit more? Because I do recall him fading a little bit in the Phil Haas fight and in the Jordan Williams fight. So I do think that there maybe are some underlying cardio issues for him. But we'll see. We'll see. What's next for him? Obviously, this is a pretty high-profile win for a non-ranked fight for him, and I assume he'll probably get something like the loser of Jack Hermanson and Derek Brunson. Or to be honest, he might even get the winner of that fight. Be interesting. And for Buckley, if he's staying at 185, I want to see him fight Chris Curtis, because I think that fight would be absolute dope. Would be awesome. Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. This is the first fight that we're going over that I lost. Essentially, Kopylov, I thought, banked the first 2 rounds and then finished in the third. And in a nutshell, I thought Kopylov was the busier fighter, the more aggressive fighter. Yes, Di Chirico was hitting him relatively hard on the counter, because that is what he does. He throws everything. He throws everything really hard, and it's weird that he doesn't get knockouts. There was also, like, in the first round, probably our funny moment of the night, where Kopylov throws this high kick, slips, falls to the mat. Di Chirico goes after him and like stumbles, almost face planting, trying to go after him. That was amusing. And we got a little bit of grappling in the first round when Alessio caught a flying knee from Kopylov, brought him down to the ground, but nothing really came of it. It was essentially a kickboxing first round. Second round, kind of more of the same. Alessio did hurt Kopylov about midway through the round, where he tagged him with a nice counter, and then that seemed to get Kopylov actually kind of angry, because he started actually planting his feet at this point and like agreeing to like longer exchanges. Got his nose busted up. So like, success for Alessio, but at the same time, eating a bunch of big body kicks, still probably getting out volumed. And Alessio did get him to the ground. He didn't do much again. And right when I thought Kopylov might have like overextended himself, looking a little bit tired heading into the third round, he ends up with, a nice flurry and body kick and gets the stoppage. And, big first win for him. Kind of proves that he like has something to offer at a UFC level. And I came to this fight honestly thinking he might not. Apparently they landed the same 6 strikes in round 2, with Kopylov slightly ahead in overall strikes. It's another case where I don't know. It feels like Kopylov landed more. It was definitely the closer round of the two. Di Chirico's like janky ass counter striking was starting to actually find its home there, but I thought Kopylov outlanded him by a more comfortable margin than that. So I don't know. I guess people who were scoring the fight 1-1 heading into the third maybe gave Di Chirico the second round. Possible, I suppose. Yeah, big finish. I really want to see Kopylov versus Michael Oleksiejczuk. I just think that would be a fun fight. I don't even necessarily think it like fits for like where they are right now, but like, although I think it kind of does. Oleksiejczuk's coming off a win over his first middleweight win over Sam Alvey. Kopylov's coming off of his first win over Di Chirico. Both guys are more counter heavy, are struggling fighters for sure. This puts I think this puts Di Chirico at like 1-6 in his last 7, yet somehow has beaten Buckley. And also, again, this was why this fight being on the main card, and originally Imavov versus Buckley being on the undercard was just so frustrating. Still weird it was on the main card. But yeah, Kopolov versus Oleksiejczuk, Dichirico versus like Jordan Wright in a loser leaves town match between two guys who I think fundamentally have a style that just doesn't really work beyond being awkward and hard to well, I was going to say hard to look good against, but Jordan Wright often actually does get people to look good against him because I think he has some poor reactions to like a fight that Dichirico doesn't. Although if Dichirico gets cut off this, it wouldn't be surprising. He is on a bad run where like there's just one random good win kind of propping him up. William Gomes versus Yarno Aarons. First, I have to say, if Yarno Aarons is actually a brown belt or a black belt, because they listed him as both in judo, no one go to that coach because there is. Don't get me wrong. There was a nice roll through he did in the second round. There was a nice triangle in the third round, although that's not really judo, but it is grappling and, might come through there. And there was, I forget what it was now. There was, second round. Aarons hit a nice hip toss, but like Gomes ended up right on top of him. What I'm getting at is for a guy who is apparently a credentialed judo guy, Aarons is not good at typical judo things, honestly. This is a fight where I'm going to refer to the box score here because a lot of people had a different takeaway of this fight. So I'm just wondering, does the box score kind of hold up on it? So the box score's got 10-7, 10-8, 12-5. The box score's got Gomez landing more strikes in each round, which was my thought too. It was really my thought too. That like Aarons just didn't do a ton, got controlled a fair bit, didn't have an answer for the entrances that Gomez had. Gomes does look like a physically imposing fighter, like I said in my breakdown, but I don't know. I just think that there's not really enough in him to really, particularly at this weight class. He won this fight throwing 70 significant strikes, landing 32 of them, 321 total. Not low like throw numbers, but like for the numbers thrown, kind of not the highest connection rates. And did not land more than 12 sig strikes in any round. I don't know. It was weirdly scored as well because this was the rare 10-10 round actually given by Judge Christoph Shepus, who gave Gomez the first round, Aarons the second round, and then gave a 10-10. And the other two judges gave the first and the second to Gomez and the third to Aarons. I don't know. I still don't think that there is I guess the triangle choke arguably could have won the third round for Aarons. Like I said, I don't know. I just thought these two guys were a little bit too messy. And I kind of want to see them up against like proven commodities, see what happens. And I've got Gomez versus Tucker Lutz. I assume he's still on contract. I haven't heard anything about Tucker Lutz being booked for anything in like a long time. So I don't know what the deal with that is, but I assume he's still on contract. And then Aarons versus like a TJ Brown type of fighter. And then we had the Jordan versus Nathaniel Wood, and I thought Wood won all three of these rounds. They were not the same round necessarily. There were differences, but I thought that realistically speaking, let's have a look at the box score again. Although the second round apparently had the same number of 6 strikes landed. Interesting. Essentially, it was Wood establishing himself in the pocket, landing some interestingly solid counters, being there. Actually did a lot of taking him down here, but they were a lot of takedowns of opportunity. In the sense of like Jordan would get a little bit off balance or whatever, and Wood would just kind of dump him with a trip or something. There was never There was never a point where I thought the grappling really defined a round. And it shows by Wood having, in 5 takedowns, 4 minutes and 30 seconds of top control. So we're talking less than a minute per takedown. It was just kind of like change it up. And it was a great performance by Nathaniel Wood. Like I'm not breaking it down too much because the dynamic was fairly simple. What the surprise was is that Wood, the smaller man and a man who has fought at 135 for his career predominantly, this is his second 145-pound fight in the UFC, was just completely unfazed by the things Jourdain was doing and kind of just took him apart. Not that the fight ever stopped being close or that at any point I thought Jourdain was out of the fight, but it was one of those fights where I'm kind of curious, what round did Jourdain get on a card? He got the second round from Mark Collette. Live, I didn't think that I would agree with that, but this is a case where, like, apparently they landed the same number of 6 strikes, and it was close on overall volume. So I don't know. They both had a takedown, although Jourdain's takedown was very much akin to Wood's takedown of like just kind of hitting the ground and then being right back up. Apparently 6 seconds. Yeah. It was a good fight. It was a good fight, but I'm having a hard time like getting super excited about it because like Charles Jourdain is usually just so much fireworks, and I don't. This was just kind of good, but like a really good sign for Wood. I still need to see him fight some bigger guys who are going to employ their physicality and their size a little bit more. Maybe you go with like the winner of Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Erosa. Maybe that shows it if you don't want to give him a wrestler. And Charles Jourdain versus David Onama was my other pick. Because David Onama, I think, is a guy who might just go to war with him and is a guy who needs to prove some things. And like Charles Jourdain will give him the chances to do that. But that also at the same time does feel like going like really far down the division for a guy who probably should have beaten Shane Burgos or at least like drawed with him. And then, took this fight, like I said, on less than 2 months' notice. And it does feel like he just was a little physically flat. Justin Stolfus got annihilated by Abu Sipian Magomedov. Front kick to the face, flurry, put him down. Stolfus is probably cut. Magomedov, I said the winner of Deron Witten versus Julian Marquez. Especially if it's Julian Marquez, because I actually really don't want to see him fight Deron Witten. I just think that Marquez will win that fight. Might be a good option. I still don't really understand Magomedov's hype train, because a lot of people are like really expecting something for him, and I still don't. Like, don't get me wrong, he went out there and he annihilated Stolfus, but he still feels like kind of a slow, low-paced, power grappling middleweight. And it's not that he can't win fights. It's not that he won't have a long run or whatever. It's just I don't really get why people were super stoked about him. And then he goes out and does this, and then people will be like, what do you mean? He went out there and he front kicked Stolfus in the face. I'm like, that's not something you're going to see him do a ton. Let's be honest. That has to do with the fact that Stolfus just is not very good. Nasrat Haqparast beat John McDessie. Interesting fight because, of course, Haqparast trains with TriStar. McDessie used to train with TriStar. I don't know if they trained with each other at any point, but there was some heat here because McDessie says that Firas Zahabi, the head of TriStar, would never try to get his fighters a fight against McDessie, and they did. And I don't know. Haqparast has got Cordero in his corner and Firas in his corner. And it just still feels like he should be way better. Like he's fighting a 37-year-old guy who is pretty small for the weight class. I had him losing round 1 and winning rounds 2 and 3. Essentially just like a volume kickboxing fight pretty much the whole way through. I will say Haqparast was running away a ton in the 3rd round, and I'm not a guy who's like, you got to go forward all the time or whatever, but like at the same time, you do kind of have to know that looks bad to the judges, right? But yeah, essentially Hawk Prost outlanded him by a couple of strikes in both rounds. He did knock him down in the second round. I thought the second round has to go to Hawk Prost. The first and third are kind of toss-up rounds that I gave McDessie the first in. I gave Hawk Prost the third in. And looks like 2 judges gave Hawk Prost all 3 rounds. I'm not sure I agree with that. But it's not the end of the world. Howard Hughes, Derek Cleary did that, and Mark Collette had my scorecard basically where he gave McDessie the first and he gave Hawk Prost the third, and the second and the third. And I don't know. Don't have really much more to say about it. John McDessie's coming towards the end of his career, I would think. And for Hawk Prost, the winner of Matt Frivola and... Oh, there's going to be some noise. I have 2 water bottles sitting next to me, and I just clipped them with my hand because I talk with my hands like an Italian. Frivola and Otman Zaitar, the winner of that fight, and then for McDessie, I'd kind of love to see him fight Slava. Let Vyacheslav Borshev just be fun for now until he learns like better wrestling, and then maybe we explore more. First, Yam kind of took Michael Figlak to school here. A lot of it was just like his reach and whatever, but like he would piece him apart at range, out wrestled him easily, looked good in the clinch, still looks nervous as all hell. And like I said, I was horrendously wrong about this fight, like tremendously wrong, because I thought, it's not that I thought it was an uncompetitive fight or like that Figlak was obviously going to win or whatever, but like I thought Figlak would just be able to get to the pocket a lot more. And he never felt comfortable in the pocket, apparently, because his corner was calling for it. They were calling for pocket striking, boxing exchanges, which I thought he was winning, but he kept trying to clinch, kept trying to make this a grappling match almost. And like Ziam was really ready for it. Was really ready to just dump him on his ass. And I had him winning all 3 fights or 3 rounds. Figlak's corner did a good job of hyping up Figlak with the like, you got to go. You're probably down 2-0. I would have replaced the probably with definitely down 2-0 because there was no way he won either of the first 2 rounds. And he had probably his best round because I think Ziam did tire out a little bit. Kind of similar to the Imavov versus Buckley fight. Actually, he comes out and he has kind of a messed up leg. I think at some point Figlak hurt his leg, his rear leg, his right leg, because he was definitely favoring it and hobbling on it a little bit. And one judge gave Figlak a round. I'm assuming it's the 3rd round. Oh, Howard Hughes, you gave Figlak the 1st round? What? What is that? Man got outlanded 24-15 in 6 strikes and got taken down in control for a minute and a half. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing with that? That broke me. Apparently Figlak, they only credited Figlak with landing 8 strikes in the 3rd round and 15 total strikes. That's weird. I don't know. Maybe it was just the mood that like Ziam looking a little tired, looking like maybe those strikes had a little bit more impact on him. Maybe me giving Figlak a little bit too much credit live for being like, dude's got a messed up leg and he's still out there trying to do something. So Figlak showed a lot of heart, a lot of determination. I do worry that despite a heavily muscled thigh region, that he's a little bit too small for the 155 weight class. Maybe he would fit better at 145. And I do kind of just wonder if he can deal with like high level physicality, because I still think what Ziam does is very simple. I still think Ziam is distinctly uncomfortable in a firefight, and Figlak was never really able to exploit that. So it's concerning. It's concerning. Ziam versus Mason Jones, I think would actually be a fun fight. It would be a fight where like Ziam would face a firefight with it, and it's also would be a chance for Mason Jones to kind of rebound from his loss to crap. I forget his name. Lost to Nate Landwehr. Eastern European name. Mason Jones Tapology, please. I feel bad about this because he's a guy who's legitimately up and coming here. Ludovic Klein. That's the guy. And Ziam would give some of the same kind of dynamic, a chance for a little bit of a redo, a chance for Ziam to kind of change my mind kind of fully. So I kind of like that idea. And then the first 3 fights of the night, not much to break down. Oh, for Figlak, the loser of Natan Levy and Gennaro Valdez. Benoit Saint Denis, he looked really, really good. There was an argument for a 10-8 first round against Gabriel Miranda. He knocked him down twice. I thought Miranda landed enough personally and did enough damage and did like kind of hurt Saint Denis a little bit in the round. And that's why I thought it was a 10-9. But I don't vehemently dislike the 10-8. In fact, I think this is what a 10-8 should look like and what generally contrasts a 10-8 in the UFC scoring criteria, or at least the Athletic Commission's scoring criteria, actually should be like more like a 10-7 because it would give more diversity. But in a nutshell, Miranda could never really deal with the power of Saint Denis. Like just at every point, he was overpowered. Even when Miranda went for an immediate, like a very early takedown against Saint Denis, because Saint Denis just kind of reversed him and then stood back up, and then Miranda tried to like do some things and like throw some punches, and this is the first time he had him hurt, and then Saint Denis threw a spinning back fist, which kind of landed, and then but from that point onwards, just kind of took him to school. He's not technically sound. Like I said, Miranda was able to hurt him. Miranda is not a particularly great striker in his own right. So Saint Denis is going to get hurt at some point when he faces someone with a little more physicality. But he is super strong, super powerful, and he just kind of tanked most of what Miranda hit him with. And in the second round, after Miranda was absolutely saved by the bell, getting knocked down and hurt badly by Saint Denis, he got finished in the second round. Big win for Saint Denis. Well, not really. He's got 2 wins over guys who do not have UFC wins in Stolza and Miranda, and that's why I kind of want to see him fight. Like, I'm kind of like want to see him fight the winner of Eros Medic versus Mike Davis. I think that would be a baller fight. Mind you, whoever the winner of that gets is going to be amazing, I think. Miranda, I put Jordan Levitt in here because, like, the thing with Miranda is I have no faith that he's going to develop into anything more than he is. And what he is kind of like a scrappy, scrambly, aggressive grappler. But without really much of a super great takedown game or without great top control. So you kind of want someone who just will grapple with him to have a fun fight. And that kind of feels like Jordan Levitt. That could also be like Trey Ogden if he doesn't have a dance partner. And let's move on to Khalid Taha versus Christian Quinones. Not much to say here. The stoppage had a little bit of controversy. It was 3 minutes and 15-second fight. Pretty even stand-up, actually. It's not like Quinones went out here and like outclassed and blew Taha out of the water. But he landed a good shot. Taha did the partial face plant. Referee stopped the fight. We went through this with the Derek Lewis-Sergey Pavlovich fight. If you're going to do a face plant or you're going to fall forward or whatever, there is a solid chance that the referee is going to step in. Because it's dangerous. Because it's dangerous to fall like that. And then keep fighting. So, I thought it was a perfectly fine stoppage. I thought Taha maybe probably could continue, but that's hindsight being 50-50. And for Taha, I assume he's going to get cut. And for Quinones, the winner of Randy Costa versus Guido Canetti, maybe. I think he's a fun fighter. I think he's a limited fighter, but I think he is a fun fighter, and it could be fun. I have to say this. We had Ailin Perez, I forget how they pronounce it now, against Stephanie Egger. Perez was calling out Amanda Nunes on Twitter. I assume it's not her actually running her own Twitter account. So like I'm going to give benefit of a doubt here. Because the Perez Twitter account was holding up like conversations with fans, including myself, um, really, really close to her walkout. So like I assume it was not her. But Perez has developed a really annoying fan base because she twerks and because she's thick in the right places and like attractive. She's kind of got the OnlyFans fight following right now. They even call themselves Twerk Army. A couple of them do. It annoys the hell out of me because how do I put this? I have said this repetitively that like often I'm not actually all that annoyed by fighters chasing that dollar, chasing whatever angle they can have. And I don't hate it. But there was a level here of like talking about Amanda Nunes ducking you when you haven't fought in the UFC, calling for a title shot. If you beat Stephanie Egger before you've even beaten Egger who's taken this fight on late notice, Egger who's not a featherweight, is a bantamweight. I mean, admittedly, neither Perez is not a featherweight either. Like Perez has made bantamweight, and I largely assume that she'll be at bantamweight long term. But I think she has this idea that because featherweight is so goddamn thin that she'll basically be in title picture with like. It seems like her camp actually believes that had she won this fight, she would have gotten a title shot, and I think that's kind of ridiculous. And here's a tip to any fighter who has not fought on a UFC card. Here's a tip. If you're debating with fans on social media, do not call them casuals, because this is the thing: is no casual fan is going to be debating with someone from the regional scene who has not fought in the UFC. Like, as a rule, that means you are dealing with hardcore fans, maybe haters, maybe wrong, whatever, but you are dealing with people who are pretty deeply invested into the sport. Or bots. I guess that's the other option. So going around calling people casuals for saying that your claim to a title shot is kind of bullcrap is not a good idea. There we go. That's my rant on Perez. And she lost the fight pretty convincingly. Essentially, and this is the thing, like they keep calling her a Sanda fighter, but she does not fight like a Sanda fighter. She fights like just a fearless fighter, I guess, in a nutshell. Immediately clinching with Egger. That's the one part of Egger's game that works. Egger throws her to the mat, goes for the scarf choke, doesn't get it. Some submission attempts come through. Perez does manage to get back to her feet. About 2 minutes left in the first round. Nice. But then immediately back into the clinch. Immediately back on her back. Egger working some ground and pound. Perez tried to throw a spinning back fist right at the end of the round and did hurt a little bit. But then, like, spinning back fist has Egger stumbling, clinches right back up with her. Why? This fight was terrible. Second round, more of the same. Egger gets the clinch, sacrifice throw. Perez actually does get top position, but Egger reverses her, gets her back, and gets the rear naked choke submission. I still have zero faith in Stephanie Egger. Zero. I think her wins against Jessica Rose Clark and against, mostly Jessica Rose Clark and then this one, and even the Shanna Young fight, basically involved people being completely unable to match her in the clinch and also, at the same time, completely unwilling to not clinch with her. Because I don't think she doesn't have great ways of forcing a clinch. She has a very one-handed striking game. I feel like the puzzle to beating her should be pretty easy. Whatever. Match up with the winner of Chelsea Chandler and Julia Stoliarenko, I guess. And then I have no idea what's next for Perez, because Perez, again, seems like 145 is supposed to be her home, and it's not a division. It's not a division with any structure. It's not a division with any like logic to its matchmaking. So I have no idea. She should probably be at flyweight though. There you go. She would have to probably lose some of the butt, but there you go. And hopefully her fans calm the hell down after this, because they still haven't. Like they're still coming after me on Twitter, and it's kind of hilarious. Yeah, there you go. That was the fight card. We've got the world's worst pay-per-view, at least in recent memory, for the UFC coming up. UFC 279, KSW and LFAF cards as well. Contender series coming up. Nothing for Bellator, nothing for One, nothing for BFL, unfortunately. So yeah, it's the Chimaev versus Diaz card. Don't get me wrong, I like the Leech versus Tony. I like Daniel Rodriguez versus Kevin Holland. I potentially like Johnny Walker versus Ion Cutelaba. And I do like Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Rosa, but those should not be the headline fights. Those should not be what I'm most looking forward to. Or the complete meme fight that is Jake Collier versus Chris Barnett for the big guy, the chubby guy, heavyweight title. I don't know. And it's not like it's a card that was plagued by injury too much, because like they willingly moved Sterling and Dillashaw off of this, and like the biggest injury aside from that has been Miguel Baeza, I guess, or like sad Hannah Seifers, maybe, just because of her popularity. Talk about, by the way, girls who need to be in a new weight class. Atomweight calls for you, Hannah Seifers. Do it. Anyways, that's the fight card. Check the links below to the Linktree Discord. We did month 47 of the career mode. That's posted up. We've also got a Costa Rica deathmatch tournament going on in the Discord right now. If you don't know what Costa Rica deathmatch is, it's essentially Mortal Kombat / the Kumite / whatever under an MMA landscape, and it's fun. And we've also got Slam Ball Sim coming up. Season 2 will be starting up pretty soon here. Actually, I think I'm ready to present the draft class to the guys and girls, and we'll have something handled there. And yeah, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed. Check out the Twitter. Check out the various places the podcast is available, and I will see you in about 4 days.